Do you have overalls and do you wear overalls?
I don't wear overalls. I don't condone the overalls that Jake has and wears. I was very uncomfortable with him in those overalls.
Hello, everyone. This is David Starr from Watch Our Pass, and today I'm excited to be joined by Trent O'Donnell, the co-writer, producer, and director of Ride the Eagle, which is coming to theaters, VOD, and digital on July 30th, 2021. We're going to talk to him in just a second, but first, let's check out the trailer, and while you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. It also meant a lot. Thank you.
Hi, Leif. Look at me talking to you even though I'm dead. That's trippy, right? Well, I'm still here. Spiritually, I'm right behind you. Oh! That was a good one. I got you. Nope. I got you. I know. Yeah, I did.
I hereby leave my cabin to my son, provided he completes this list of tasks left for him at the cabin.
Do you want a gun?
No, should I?
No, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Your next task, call the one who got away and say you're sorry.
Hey, Audrey, it's Leif.
I'm sorry, is that a name or a word?
We dated for 3 years.
Why don't you give me your phone number, and then if I can remember who you are, I'll just give you a call back.
It's 4.
You're so dumb, Leif. Oh, buddy.
Sometimes life is messy. It doesn't go as you planned, but it's not over.
I'm too stoned for this.
Are you lingering? Don't linger. Stop the tape, please. I've tried so hard to get this all
shut
together.
up.
Please.
Hey, Trent.
Hey, David, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So I like the flannel. I was expecting maybe like overalls, but flannel works. I think that's a fitting outfit for this this movie. So.
Yeah, it wasn't an accident. I thought I put effort.
I noticed no art though. I was hoping that maybe there might be some art in the background.
I'm in like a little apartment in Montreal at the moment, so I'm not at home right now.
Got it. All right. Well, so this is Trent O'Donnell, the co-writer, producer, and director of Ride the Eagle, which is coming to theaters, VOD, and digital on July 30th, 2021. So I guess the first question, I guess, what inspired this? Did you have like a life-changing incident? Did you just want to like go? Did you have some wanderlust because of lockdown? What inspired this story? Because you co-wrote it, so I'm kind of curious what that inspiration was.
It was really born out of Jake and I wanting to do something, wanting to make something. We would sort of we'd been in lockdown for a few months. We kind of missed hanging out and wanted to like have a little adventure and go and make a thing, because we were looking to make something before lockdown, and then when everything happened. So the actual, like, if I'm being honest, the real kernel of the idea was, do you want to make something? Yes, let's make something. And then we met up, and then we started to go, okay, what, we've always sent each other ideas for things and sent ideas back and forth. So we first started to look at all of those, deciding what we could achieve, like what was possible. We knew we didn't want it to be, time-stamped a pandemic movie per se. Like we didn't want it to look, we were never interested in doing anything set in COVID. But yeah, we we got together day one, and then, we fell on these stories that sort of a kind of a mismatch of like different family stories drawn from our own like families and extended families, and yeah, slowly put this one together.
That's awesome. I love that this was born out of, boredom and free time in the lockdown. I talked to another director, Rob Savage from Host, who said the same thing. He was like, we were locked down. I wanted to do something with my friends. And so we just started kind of brainstorming ideas. Yep. And we're like, what can we do? So
I think you have to a little bit. Like you can't, like, as much as you'd love to be the dude who gets like inspiration at like 4 a.m. and you write down the idea that you have to make and have those epiphanies, I think more often than not, you have to will them into existence a little bit and give them, And I think Jake and I gave each other momentum as well. Like once we said we're doing it, there was like, you have that sort of unspoken contract with each other that we're going to follow through and finish it.
And it's also kind of poetic that if making this movie was probably your own kind of list of challenges for yourself and trying to figure out, get outside of your comfort zone to figure out how to do this. So you kind of had a journey while you're making it for the journey in the film.
Definitely. Yeah. It was tough sometimes.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, especially because there must have been so many unknowns, right? I mean, I guess you picked the right location to film, during lockdown, but still, like it must have been tough just to get people on board and try to figure out, what you can do, what's safe, what's not safe. Like how was that
Yeah.
process? And I mean, just slowly and surely, or how did that process go?
I mean, we always had to be, we had to like, we tested everyone obviously, because it was before anyone was vaccinated. So the vaccine was still like way on the horizon. But we also wanted to be smart and not have like a huge group of people. So everyone working on the film had to sort of commit to going, hey, we're all going to get tested, and then we're going to drive up to Yosemite, and then we're all going to live together, and we're not going to see anyone else, and we're going to hang out all the time. And that was kind of the buy-in, that it was, so it had this sort of like, there was no going home really at the end of the night and hanging out with your family, and so there was, and some of that was great, and some of it was challenging.
I feel like you could have maybe doubled up here and had like a real world type film as well. You could have filmed the house in the real world scenario where we're all living together and you can't go home, and then you have the movie. You have two shows for the price of one.
Yeah.
So you worked with Jake before. I saw that you directed New Girl. So I don't know if that was where you met Jake or you knew him before that. But how did you get Susan Sarandon and J.K. Simmons and Darcy all on board as well? Because I know that must have been difficult as well, convincing people to jump into a project during lockdown.
Yeah, it was actually one of the nicest, and I'm going to say the easiest casting processes I've ever had. Jake and I have been friends for a long time. We did meet on New Girl, but I'd worked with Darcy before and we were friends, and then I'd worked with JK before. Susan and Jake had a mutual friend, but we hadn't met Susan before, but she was just our like, let's just take a crazy swing archetype of who we want this character to be. But it was because, we found all these, like, we just hit at a sweet time when there were like all these wonderful, like, creative people who hadn't really done anything for a few months. Everyone was like wildly available. And so by creating this sort of contained, safe little environment, we were able to get, like, we didn't ask anyone else. We asked JK and we asked Susan, and they both said yes. And, I remember JK, and I just emailed JK. I didn't go through agents and managers and stuff. I was like, would you do this? He was like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, great. What day do you want? When can you do it? He's like, I can do it anytime. I'm not doing anything right now. Yeah, it was pretty great.
And so did Susan also come out? Because I was watching her scenes and I felt like she could have filmed that from her home and just like sent you either a video or a VHS. I don't know if she had a VHS player. Did she also come out to film for the whole experience, or was she, did she work remotely and then just send you the footage that you needed?
That's well observed. We did film. We went to her.
Okay.
So we flew out to her, and we shot at her place.
Nice, very cool. And then, one thing I love Jake Johnson. I loved him in New Girl. I love him in everything else. So thank you for that and bringing that to me, because that was my first exposure to Jake Johnson. It's one of my favorite TV shows. But I love his character. His character is it's kind of like a gruff everyman, and I'm just wondering, on screen, was he improvising a lot? Was he kind of riffing off the lines? Like how did the dialogue flow? Because I imagine he's probably a funny guy that probably just kind of moves with the scenes, but I also, he probably also respects what was written. So I wasn't sure, how did that process go out?
It's definitely a mix of both. Like this was not a film that we like wildly improvised, but we did rehearse quite a lot. And I think Jake writes in a very natural way as well. He tended to do the lion's share of his dialogue in the original screenplay. But then we would, we'd rehearse with like Darcy, and we'd get on Zoom like this, and they would just, and I would be the other person on there, and I'd just be like taking notes, and then they would open it up and stuff like that. So we kind of did all that work before we got on set. It wasn't one where we weren't like pedantic and sort of like, no, there's a beat there or anything like that. There were little moments that were opened up, but it was, we had a good idea of what we were going to do before we got there. And that's kind of how I think of improvisation anyway, is like, it almost is that last layer, that last pass of the script when you're on the set, and you're seeing the actual actor and the actual costume and the actual location, because there's always those little unknowns. So sometimes you just like tailor little things to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love that you mentioned the conversation with Darcy, because I really love the scenes when she and Jake are kind of talking on the phone. There's this really good, nice split screen. I was just kind of wondering, since this is filmed in lockdown, did Darcy come out to film on set? Was she just in a different room, or did you kind of sync those up in some after the fact way? How did that scene get filmed?
We synced them up after the fact. She did come to location, like we did shoot her at a location, but then we basically, particularly when we were doing like, and we actually had Jake on the phone for some of Darcy's stuff, but for Jake's side of the phone call, it was me or an old friend of Jake's, Billy, who was like, we were basically reading the love interest off camera to Jake.
Just great acting, man. Just wonderful acting right there. That was
Yeah, we were just giving him the tone. I mean, that's the thing. Like we're all like, he is to give Jake a compliment that I hope he never sees. He is like, as much as he has this like effortless tone to his performance and very groundedness, he puts a lot of thought into it. Like he often, you know, there is actually a lot going on with that kind of like that everyman kind of like swagger that he naturally has. Mm-hmm. He does. I find him just tonally like a very reliable, solid actor.
Awesome. Yeah, I imagine like it seems like he's established his tone, but then he also can kind of stretch within that, which was nice to see as well.
Yeah.
I saw that in the film, the artwork is kind of striking. So it said in the film that it was made by Erin Payne. Did her artwork inspire the Honey character, or did she do art based on kind of your vision of Honey and kind of her quirks?
A little bit of both, honestly. So Erin's Jake's wife.
Oh, there we go.
And she even had she had art on the set of New Girl in like Nick's room she had a piece in there. And so she's had this stuff that does have this like kind of like kooky, fun nature kind of animal vibe thing going. And then we really gave her the palette to just go, can you make us great, weird art for this character? And we just let her go. And she came back with all these incredible pieces.
Yeah, the montage at the end was a lot of fun because it all related, but you hadn't seen it all, so it was all kind of like new, fun, relatable experiences. So
yeah.
So now I'd like to go. I know we have limited time, so I'd like to jump into the lightning round. I call it. It's just short, lightweight questions about the film and the characters. I want to see how your experiences map onto things that happen in the film. So you can feel free to not answer if you don't want to. I won't be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable.
Okay.
First question: do you have a dog?
I do.
Excellent.
Yes.
Was the dog feature? Was that the dog? Is that your dog?
Dog, that was Jake's dog. I have an unruly, very badly behaved dog, and Jake has like an ex-guide dog, like professional dog. That's Jake.
I love that. So what have your parents ever tried to teach you after you moved out? Like any sort of lessons they've tried to impart on you after the fact?
I think the lessons they've tried to teach me. I think my mum particularly, who she wanted that, like she inspired me to like travel and see the world and work other places. All the things I think she wanted to do in her life, that was something that she really, pushed me and my sisters into, which somewhat blew up in her face because now we have grandchildren on the other side of the world.
Well, that's good. I mean, when you hear about parents kind of like forcing their experience, experiences they never did on their kids, that's a really good one to have your kids do, is travel and see the world. That's a great one.
I mean, she would have loved to. She was like from a big Catholic family of like 10 brothers and sisters, and that was just like she wasn't, didn't get to do those things, and so wanted her kids to do it. Awesome.
Have you ever reconnected with an old flame?
You know what? I haven't, only because I've been with my wife for like 1 billion years. We've been together for 20 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that makes perfect sense then. If you could restart in a new location, where would you go? And it sounds like maybe you already have restarted in multiple new locations. So
if I could restart in a new location, and it's not just because I filmed the movie there, but Yosemite probably is my favorite place in the world. My family and I, during lockdown, before we shot the film, went up there and stayed in like a little cabin on the edge of the park. I would like to at one stage like live somewhere like that out of the city. And I think, yeah, that valley in Yosemite, if you can get it on the right day without a billion people, it's as extraordinary as anything I've seen.
Yeah, and I think you're well on your way. You got the beard, you got the flannel. I think you're like 50% of the way there. So
Yeah, except I'm in a city. But apart from that, yeah, I could be.
yeah, I mean, baby steps, right? Where would you want your ashes to be spread?
I think I'll go ocean. I'll go the ocean. Yeah, always grown up. I grew up by the ocean. That feels nice to me.
Awesome. And then this might be a very long in the past question. What's the longest you've ever driven or flown for a booty call? Or maybe you're on set and you just fly back home and fly back. I don't know what you're.
Well, I did again. I'm sorry, it's my wife, but she was in London once, and we flew to Vietnam and met in Vietnam. Yeah, like she was working in London for a little bit. This is like in our mid-20s. Yeah, I think that was a big flight.
Is that almost? That seems like that's almost as far as you could possibly fly from London to get to Vietnam. Right?
Yeah, I mean, she did. Yeah, she went a little bit further, but yeah. It's a.
And I guess the last question is: do you have overalls, and do you wear overalls?
I don't wear overalls. I don't condone the overalls that Jake has and wears. I was very uncomfortable with him in those overalls. The overalls were 100% Jake Johnson's idea.
I mean, you know, it did kind of make his character. He did have a fixation on them, so you know, I think I'll allow it. It did make for some very funny scenes as well. So
he started to he would kind of complain about them, how they were how they looked goofy and stuff like that. But then suddenly every day he was just wearing the overalls like a little bit longer. Suddenly we'd be having dinner and Jake's still in the overalls. So yeah, they had a life of their own.
And is that his one pair of lucky overalls? He just kind of wore for the entirety of the film.
He did buy them for the film, but they were vintage kind of yeah. But there were no doubles. There's that one pair of overalls. Yeah.
You know, I think COVID brought back a lot of different fashions. Most people were sweatpants or workout shorts, overalls, though that's a good option. And I think Jake rocked it. So it works out well.
Yeah, he did.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you have a busy slate, but this is Trent O'Donnell, the co-writer, producer, and director of Ride the Eagle, which is coming to theaters, VOD, and digital on July 30th, 2021. Thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. And I love, just a side note, I loved the setting of this film because I grew up in Southern California. So on the drive up, I was like, oh, that's right by where I grew up. You drove up the 14, right by where I grew up. So
yeah, it was great. I love that part of the world.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And okay. I loved it. I don't know if it came through, but I really love the film. So thank you so much for making it.
That's really cool.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Take care.
See ya. Bye.
That was Trent O'Donnell, the co-writer, producer, and director of Ride the Eagle, a coming-of-age story starring Jake Johnson, a dog, and the wilderness. If you liked this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot to make sure all of my new content goes straight to you. And as always, please go to watcherpass.com for all your movie reviews, interviews, and recommendations. Thank you.